Hello, everyone. My name is Jade Young. I'm a staff member here at DisOrient. I'm really excited to welcome you to the 17th annual DisOrient Asian American Film Festival of Oregon. For 17 years, DisOrient has maintained this platform to celebrate the stories and voices of Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders. Thanks for being a part of that mission. Today, it's my pleasure to host this conversation with the filmmakers of DOMestication from our Finding Authenticity Shorts program. This is a reality show style documentary showing Kim, who's a professional dominatrix, her journey leading up to her wedding as she grapples with staying true to her rebellious nature while also doing something that's seen as very traditional and basic. Today we are joined by Kim Ye, who is the creator, producer, and subject. Kim is a Los Angeles-based interdisciplinary artist whose work incorporates social justice practice, installation, video performance, sculpture, and written word. Her work traces the circulation of power by exploring concepts of labor, intimacy, and the exchange between an artist and their audience, and she's performed and exhibited nationally and internationally. Kim, thank you for joining us. We also have the director, Maegan Philmore. Maegan is currently a director of production at Viacom CBS and has previously worked on hit shows, including Naked and Afraid, Welcome to Sweetie Pies, and Freedom Riders. Her creative pursuits have been selected for multiple festivals, including this one. Thank you both for joining us and being a part of this Q&A.
Thanks for having us.
So there's so much we can talk about this film. I really enjoyed it. It was such an interesting subject matter and perspective. I wanted to start with Kim, and I was wondering if you could just start out by talking a little bit about your decision to go into this process and document this time leading up to your wedding and turning it into an art piece.
Sure. Thank you so much. It's great to be here with all of y'all today. So I was getting married. I was engaged to get married in 2019, and I was just having a lot of feelings about it, things that I thought were really I wasn't seeing these kinds of worries or pressures or tensions kind of in the narratives that were around me, so being a consumer of media, of Netflix, of reality shows, the worry seemed to be more about the logistics of the wedding itself in these bridezilla genre productions. And what I was feeling was something that was just very more with the problems with the concept of marriage. And so my decision to kind of go into making this into a documentary, it was just trying to understand the journey for myself, and if it's possible to take part in this type of institution that I did not feel aligned with for most of my life.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I also really like what you said about how a lot of what we hear about, because we hear a lot about this time leading up to your wedding being really stressful and all these things, but it's for all these reasons that are still going along with that set idea of what marriage and wedding looks like. So, and I think when you hold all these different identities, there's all these rules that go along with each of those. So you're probably trying to figure out, how you can make that work into your life instead of changing yourself to meet that. So I think that's very powerful. Maegan, I was wondering how you got involved with this project and what that process was like, because you also have this background with the reality shows, which is an interesting perspective going into this project.
Kim's, one of her business partners was a friend of mine. And when Kim was talking about this project, that's how we got connected. Very neat. They're in the documentary. And just connected us. And also I was in love with love. I really was kind of obsessed with getting married doing this project. I'm no longer obsessed with getting married. So the project did something to me in a really great way. It helped me realize my person's going to come along if they do at a certain time. And so that's how I got involved, knowing that I could put together with a very small budget what Kim needed to tell it. So yeah, just because of my background, I've done docs and reality. So
yeah, so it sounds like you have like the professional experiences and the interest in the subject matter. Really,
yeah.
And it's cool to hear about how that changed your perspective like over the course of that. And I'm wondering, Kim, like going into this as kind of a way to like pick apart these different feelings you're having about it, like how did you come out of it feeling?
Yeah, it's cool to hear Maegan say that like it changed her working on this, changed her perspective of marriage. I never heard you say that before, Maegan, and I think that's really cool because it kind of did the same for me. Like in going through this process, I was like, in the beginning, just very much in my head, and like this is something that's like so unique to me, and I'm the only one going through it. And then as we like told the story, and Maegan was really instrumental in helping make that kind of great art that you're seeing in like reality television, right? And to kind of encouraging me to find a way to string all these feelings and steps that I was taking together, that I began to realize like, oh, okay, this is like inseparable from like my family history, from like our diaspora story, from like my parents' divorce, and all these like cultural things that like were not in the front of my mind at the time. I thought I was incompatible with marriage for other like individualistic reasons, like, that I'm a dominatrix or a sex worker, or, just saw myself as like an exception to whatever Asian American, category that was out there. And like, so yeah, for me to like tell this story and like find a way through it, it really changed, like, it made me okay with being married and getting married. It's pretty amazing.
That's really amazing and really powerful. I think it's like interesting how you said it kind of made you like explore these different parts, like aspects of yourself that you weren't originally thinking were like connected with this like specific wedding day. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, maybe specifically with like how your culture and family played into that, especially for our audience.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for me, when I was like telling my family I was getting married, or that we were gonna get, like, everyone was just like so happy for me with no like negative reactions. I guess to be polite, nobody's like making negative reactions when you're telling them you're getting married normally. But yeah, just seeing kind of like how they really accepted my partner, and he is not an Asian person, he's a white person, and kind of like seeing them just really accept him, and not only accept him, but like be so happy for me that like I found somebody that I could accept, and not only accept, but like really celebrate and understand my culture with, even though they're like, he's outside of like our demographic, I guess, was really, it made me understand like the strength of our like union or relationship like in a deeper way than I had before, and really helped me to understand like, oh, a marriage isn't about like you as an individual, it's about you bringing someone else into the family, and about expanding the meaning of what family even is, and like saying that now is kind of like duh, but at the time I really didn't. I had this really like I guess prototypical American individualistic approach to it, and so going through this process, I was like, okay, it's like not about me, but not in this like sad for me kind of way, but in this like really expansive way that's helped me just feel more at home in my culture and with my family. Yeah.
Well, that's really cool. And I feel like you can see that progression throughout the film. Like there's a few like certain points, like I feel like when your friends throw you that bachelorette weekend and like have that ceremony, and like I think one of the sweetest moments was like when your two grandmas are talking at the wedding, and it's like these points that like really zoom out to like, I don't know, showing how you're really bringing like these two communities and the families you've created together. I just thought that was really beautiful. Part of another question about having your friends and family involved was, what was it like for them being involved in this whole process of making this film? And what were they on board with it? Were they surprised?
I think being an artist, my family's kind of used to me doing like weird stuff. It was like really, it was like the perfect opportunity to really get to know what they thought, because having the whole apparatus of filmmaking, like the cameras, the lights, the backdrop, and like you have Maegan who's there like interviewing them, like asking them what they think, like having this kind of formal structure around a conversation, I think really drew things out of them that I have never heard them say before. Maybe other people can relate, like their dad or their parents might not be the most emotionally available people, but to hear them say to like a newly met their interviewer Maegan, like that they're so happy and this and that and so proud, it's like I never even heard them say that to my face. So yeah, I think it was cool to see a different dimension of each other too. There were some reservations, but we had to like have everybody sign disclaimers and things like that during the weddings in order to film it and stuff. And so the main people, the people you see in the documentary, they obviously were fine with it. But it was surprising that some people who were just like there at the wedding felt kind of self-conscious about being included as like, background people. So that was like probably the most resistance like that I faced in this process.
Yeah, when you talked about your dad, when I was watching that, I was like, wow, it is such a hard thing to imagine, like with Asian dads specifically. And that's like a real testament to like Maegan, your job as an interviewer and director, and just like the space you created. So I think that's amazing. Maegan, what was it like for you, like doing the interviews for this process and like working with all these people that I guess are probably like not as familiar with this world?
Well, the one thing that I didn't understand exactly, because coming from the logistics budget side of reality TV, I always wanted to know why the showrunners would go and want to spend time with the person. And so Kim and I had 2 dinners where I pretty much ate a huge pork chop. That's what I ate. I ate a huge pork chop at these, and I really got to know Kim. I got to know Brian a little bit and really think about, they come from these people. And I've had half of my girlfriends are Asian people, and I've gotten to meet their families that are not from the United States. And I found it very interesting, our dialogues in general. And so with this, I kind of just approached it. I said, I'm just going to be myself and say who I am. The first time we interviewed Kim's mom, she was a little bit nervous. So the second go around, we did it exactly again, gave her the questions ahead of time, and she prepped. Her dad also wanted that too. And I think that helped them because they knew what they were going, like they came in ready. That second time they came in ready, meaning we only did her dad once, but he came in prepared. And I thought that helped. And also Kim asked questions too. So the tag team of both really helped. And I think that they were so proud of their daughter. They were so happy for their daughter. It helped a lot. And then Kim's friends, I think we're kind of like-minded. Like I'm just a little bit older, I think, than that group, but pretty much like-minded. It wasn't hard at all. Like anything I'd ask, they would be right there. The interview that I'm sure got you was Christine's interview, and Kim is the one who told me of all the bridesmaids or the maids to get Christine, and Christine gave me so many gems to make the documentary. The documentary would have been way different in relation to a Chinese American person's story without Christine as another person in that offshoot of China, like just having that Taiwanese, in perspective. So having the eclectic group and also having prior experience with people who come from Asia and their families. And I think just Kim being very, very upfront. She's like, no, I want to answer these questions. I want to ask some of these. I think it'll help. It was, and then, and then Jessica, who also was the editor, she asked a couple in there too, or like would text me like, ask this. So it was kind of like a group effort to get the answers.
Yeah, and like the interview I think we were talking about with Christine is like when she's sharing like that kind of cultural piece about like, this is like the pressure you're feeling from your family, that kind of thing. Yeah, that was really important to the film and added a lot of dimension with like understanding your different identities. So, yeah. Was there ever a point, or like were there like things that you weren't able to put into the documentary, or like that didn't go how you thought it would, or that didn't work out, anything like that?
Would you like to answer, Kim? Because I know I have mine.
I'll just say and I'll pass it over to you. Yeah, I did not think that the cultural component, being Asian American, being Chinese American, was going to play such a big role in this documentary at first. But then, as we went through the process and we were like really locating the story arc, I started going back into my archives of family photos and things like that. And we ended up including like a lot of that material that I did not, envision being part of it. But then in realizing it's like we couldn't really tell, the story didn't make any sense without that piece. So that was something definitely unexpected for me that I'm really happy ended up being such a substantial part of the project. What about you, Maegan?
Well, what I liked, what we didn't get, and the reason why we kind of made that shift is Brian and Kim were such a, like I always say, Kim's parents wanted her to be the perfect Chinese girl. Kim rebelled against that and found the perfect match for her in a partner, And so since that was our story, Brian and Kim, even if Kim was a true bridezilla, right? It wasn't dynamic enough for a documentary. So what is dynamic is, why is Kim rebelling against marriage? Because every woman wants to get married, quote unquote. Like that's the thing. So for me, I was like, why is she? And we start getting to know how both of their sides of families, Brian and Kim's, have divorces in them, how that affected Kim, her parents divorcing, because that really formed Kim. You could clearly see just in pictures, she became rebellious against a lot of things for various reasons. Her mother even can see it in her. And, so that for me, and then also Kim, I think from the initial, her initial statement on what she wanted to do to the second, she started talking about generational trauma. And I know from my girlfriends that I was talking about, they have a lot of pressure from their parents that I don't have being a Black American. I didn't have that pressure. I had a different type of pressure, but not the pressure I feel like Asian parents, especially when they're not from the United States, expect their kids to be top notch in everything, where I didn't have that. Like, they wanted me to be an engineer, but when I was like, I'm going to be a theater major, no one really cared. They kind of just let me be, where some of my girlfriends really had pain with it. So that core of the story, when I saw it wasn't as intense, I don't believe, with Kim, but part of it was there. And I think just Kim knowing that, I said, oh, I want to tell that story as the intro, because what perfect way for her to exercise against that is to have power exchange be a part of professionally, and to eventually spill over into her romantic life. So that was, it was a very good surprise to not have a dysfunctional relationship. Brian and Kim do not have a dysfunctional relationship, even though I think most of America would think it's dysfunctional, because when I just write down what it is, and I think a lot of, also, I just want to say a lot of Asian festivals, I think, did not let us in because of sex work. And I'm so proud you guys were brave enough to do it, because I made this not only to tell Kim's story, but I made it for the Asian community to have an example of someone who's authentically themselves. Kim. I mean, Kim is a phenomenal person. Like, you know what I mean? She's just phenomenal. And then what her and Brian have is something that I think took my obsession of marriage away, knowing that when it comes to me, it's going to come organically. And they did that without, and it wasn't easy to make this. Okay. It wasn't easy to make this, but over that time, me just seeing them, you know, watching the footage that came out of it. The things that we did leave on the floor were things surrounding Kim's parents' divorce that I didn't think served it well. And then we also left out this little tidbit that I'll say on Q&A for people who watch it, is they have Kim has a slave who takes care of their household. And I always am like, man, should we have put that little nugget in there? Because we never really addressed the gender roles completely in their relationship. We hinted at it, but didn't. And that's probably the only thing that I wish I would have mentioned, that what their slave does or her slave does in the house. Because it just to me, it gave Brian dimension in a way of Brian's letting this go on. Brian is, you know, yeah. So.
Well, I'm actually so intrigued about, like, I mean, a few different things. Like, one, just Kim, you're just such a total badass, and like with your rebellion and like just decision, like ability to just stay true to your authentic self despite all of these like things that are really like all these different pressures you're facing. And yeah, specifically like with like your experience as a dominatrix, like in the Asian American community, like what has that been like? And like, I bet that's like been a really difficult journey, especially like with your family and things like that. And you definitely don't need to go too much into it, but I'd be really interested to hear about it.
Yeah, sure. I'm probably happy to go into it a little bit. That's true, Maegan. Like the thing that we like when I showed this film to some of my friends or some like art colleagues, they were like, "Oh, we were really expecting to see more of like the dom part, you know, since that's like part of the I don't know, the juicy stuff of reality television, right? Like, oh my gosh, the dominatrix, what is this?" But yeah, it just didn't like, I don't, it's like part of me is like really, I'm really happy with how it turned out, because it turned out to be such like an almost normalizing story for people who might also be in sex work or massage or, you know, being sugar babies. Like sex workers are literally everywhere, and just because of like the social stigma and the like the way that institutions censor sex workers, like Instagram, even like on the internet, we're not as visible. You know, it gives this false impression that like, oh, this is a really niche experience that like only a few people can ever understand, you know. And I just am here to say, like, everyone probably knows way more sex workers than they think. You know, it was something that I ended up coming out to my mom about a few years ago, because I realized, like, in our conversations, she was expressing all this worry about, like, you know, am I surviving? Like, how am I making money as an artist? Like, it just didn't add up to her. And I realized that, like, by hiding that part of me, I was actually making her more worried than if I were just truthful. Like, I was trying to protect her or protect our relationship in some way, but in doing so, I was actually really causing her a lot of undue worry. So I just had to be brave and got my therapist on Skype and my mom on Skype, and we all like talked about it together. So you know, and it's something that it's like I'm continually navigating too, you know, like my mom knows, but she doesn't really ask any questions about it. My dad doesn't know. Maybe he'll know someday. I don't know. And now it's like, yeah, it's like as life goes on, now I have like a little baby, and I'm like, okay, well, how's that conversation gonna go as he becomes older? You know, so it's like, yeah, we're just always in the middle of it,
Yeah.
I guess. And also just like, I realized like growing up, I was still like reactionary. Like I was like really strong to stay true to myself, but then at some point I was like, it's okay to like bend a little too,
Mhm.
and it doesn't make you any weaker or less yourself. Like that idea of like allowing ourselves to change and grow into the
Mhm.
person that we're meant to be, I think is I don't know, maybe a sign of maturity or something.
Well, in this film, I guess I really see you kind of struggling with this like fear that you'll be changing who you are to fit this mold of the structure of marriage. But I really see you changing our idea of what marriage has to look like to fit you as an individual. And I think that's really cool and really powerful. I think one of the also again like one of my favorite things about this whole festival is that we get to see Asian Americans in roles that we don't normally get to see ourselves in, but that are like such a big part of like who we are in our stories, and like so like the stories of so many other people. And I think this is just the perfect story that shows that, and you really exemplify that. So thank you for being you, and thank you for your team for showcasing that. Um, I think one of the last things I want to do is give you both an opportunity to talk a little bit more about what you're working on right now, what's next for you, upcoming projects, that kind of thing.
I want to hear about Kim because I saw some stuff on her IG about breast milk, and I wanted to call you, but I have a little bit of COVID long haul. So my mind, it's been like, my mind is just not the same. So, but I do, if you want to talk about that project, if you can, but I'm interested to know what Kim's up to.
Talk about the breast milk.
Sure, Megan. Oh, that's so sweet. Like, oh my God, you can call me anytime. Yeah, I wish you would have been there. I did a performance a couple weeks ago where well, let's see, this is a really new project, so I'm trying to figure out how to even talk about it. So I'll just try to describe it the best I can. But basically, I have a 7-month-old baby, and like I've been thinking a lot about this like idea of the divided feminine that Jill Soloway talks about, and a lot of other theorists talk about too. And that, like, in traditional male gaze, Hollywood narratives, like women are like not allowed to be whole people. Like you're basically playing a role like the love interest, hot chick, or you're the bitch, or you're like the nerdy chick. You have to like fit into one of these like categories. And so this performance was like a way for me to complicate that a little. Basically, I wrote a script that had to do with I had to do with kind of like what I do as a professional dominatrix in terms of like making space for men to be homoerotic with one another, and for men who want to experience this to have the divided feminine themselves as this kind of like slut hooker archetype, dressing them up in all these body stockings, making them suck a dick, all this stuff. And so that's what like the text is kind of talking about. And while I'm reading the text, I'm also standing in front of a large projection of me squeezing, basically hand expressing breast milk from my nipples. So, people who have breastfed know that like if your baby's not with you, then you have to like squeeze out the milk. Boobs become like engorged and like hurt, So there's a video of close up of my boobs behind me, and I'm also like milking myself live. So it's like me kind of embodying this mother nurturing figure, and at the same time speaking to, using this voice that is highly coercive, shall we say, and kind of explicit, and just mashing up together in one performance. So that's what I'm up to.
Okay.
Going on.
So I am currently I'm currently producing a short film called Agent of Change outside of my day job, working at now. It was Viacom CBS, now it's Paramount, they changed it, where I make movies of the week as a network executive on the production side. So I'm doing this short film, and it's about two spies who are here to protect the world from from climate change, and they're tracking down a guy who's dumping plastic illegally. And so it's kind of a queer, little fun, quirky thing. The people who made the web series These Thems made this. And so yeah, I get to play with the binary, and we're casting a lot of trans non-binary people in front of the camera and back of the camera. So that's happening, and we should be shooting mid-March, a 3-day shoot. I am moving full force to create my own LLC, Hudson Philmore, where I'll be focusing on BIPOC, women-led, queer filmmaking. My dream would be to be like the womanist branch of Array, and Array is pretty womanist focused, or macros, but to just be specific to that, and also to have larger body types on screen. That's something I'm a plus size woman. I don't know if you tell from Zoom, but I'm a plus size woman, and I think it's important to have that body confidence. And the last thing that I'm working on is during COVID, I was in a relationship. I was in a pod with a man, and it was a casual sex relationship, but it was a really great affair. And I want to just showcase that to Black professionals, how we took care of each other in this very crazy climate that we were in. So I'll be working on that, shooting that later on in the year. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm excited to come and network with other people when I get to come opening night.
Oh, lots of things. Can't wait to see you. Yeah, you guys both have some really incredible things going on and coming up, and I'm excited to see what's next for you both. And hopefully we'll see you back at DisOrient in another year too.
Yeah, I'm ready to see what Kim is going to say when she's like, Maegan, I have all these recordings. What should we do? Because I decided the Women's Center of Creative Work kept asking. They were like, we want to do a show of Kim's like their episodes. And I said, I haven't really got to talk to her, but I'm sure she's recording something or doing some sort of piece. And that's why when I saw that on Instagram, I was like, because it has to be such a huge experience being who Kim is as a person and then having a child, but Kim also, I find that you hold close to your identity, and that for a lot of moms, especially new moms, that's a really hard thing to be. I'm myself, but I'm also a mom, so it seems like with your current piece, you are definitely on brand to everything else you've done, to a point you are a mother, just like you were an artist, a person, everything. So I'm very happy for that.
Thank you, Maegan. I can't wait to catch up with you and let you know what I've been filming. It's like random stuff. I think that's like what this life is, right? It's like we just all try to like understand ourselves, as we go through it, and like have compassion for ourselves, and get to know ourselves, which is like sounds so Hallmark, but like it's like that's it, like yeah, it's a lifelong process that's always changing. So I'm happy to be included. Thank you so much, Jade.
Yeah, thank you both. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Maegan and Kim, for being here and doing this with us and talking about your film. Thank you all for joining us for this Q&A. If you haven't already watched Domestication, definitely check it out. You will not be disappointed. And don't forget to vote for your favorite film that could be up for an Audience Choice Award. And thank you. Enjoy the rest of DisOrient.